Welcome to a special edition of Top Lines and Tales, and it's great that in episode 160 we can still do a little bit of groundbreaking, because this week we're actually having a party online, a Zoom party with a lot of friends of Top Lines and Tales and people that we know personally. But the party this week is a Christmas party and a Christmas Kist party. And for those of you who don't know what a Kist is, of course, it's the show box that we take, the box that we take with all our goodies to the agricultural shows, known as a Kist in Scotland. All those Kists there are generally stored in one place, and everybody sits around on them, brings out some drink, and we all have a party. So we're having a Kist party, but we're having it virtually. So we've got somewhere in the region of 30 to 40 people who were at the Royal Smithfield Show, which was a long time ago now. We're having our annual Kist party from the Royal Smithfield Show. 30 or 40 people turned up, and it's brilliant. We're all giving it some chat, and I've split this episode into two, because the first one we're talking about the Royal Smithfield Show, about the winners, about some of the people that won, to some of the people that won who are also on the call, that great event down there in London, and what went on inside the hall, and what happened, and how fantastic it was. And please enjoy some time in their company. And then the second episode, it starts to spiral a little bit as the drink flows into an episode that gets a little bit more sordid and maybe a bit more candid as we talk about the things we did maybe outside of Smithfield. And I know this episode ends with us, one or two of us, talking about going down into the seedy part of London back there in the 1970s and 80s, where a few things happened and went on, which was good fun. So please enjoy this episode, and then don't forget to tune into the next episode, part two. But I would suggest you don't let your children listen to the part two of this. So sit back and enjoy a little bit of time there with some great people having a chat and a drink about Royal Smithfield Show. And because this is an online party, there's a lot of background noise in places, and you will hear from time to time the doorbell ring. And when the doorbell rings, that's not Santa bringing me some Christmas presents, that's other people entering into the Kist party, literally knocking on the door and coming on in, bringing a drink and joining in the chat. So this party carries on for an hour, and then after that we close it down, because everybody goes to replenish their glasses, and then we run on with the second party there. So brilliant to have everybody here on this year's annual Kist party. And I have to say a great thanks to Harbro, our sponsors. Harbro, who've stuck with us now for 160 episodes, been brilliant there. Of course, they would have been involved in the Royal Smithfield Show as well. So make sure that you give Harbro a nod and have a look, see what they can do with you. Pop down to their store, buy your Christmas presents. Make sure that you check out their range of products and see how Harbro can help you with your livestock nutrition. So thanks to Harbro, and everybody, please sit back and enjoy this episode. Good evening, and welcome to what can only be termed, I suppose, as a posthumous Royal Smithfield Show Kist party. It's 19 years since we last had a Kist party there in Earl's Court, and invited everybody along. It's brilliant to see so many of you here this evening on this Zoom call, and I'm going to record this call, so it's going to go out as a podcast later this week. So it's brilliant to see you all, and welcome to the Royal Smithfield Show Kist party.
Merry Christmas.
I'm going to start with a little bit of history on Smithfield that people will know. I'm not going to be a boring history lesson. We do have on the call there Dr. Bob Hoke. Bob's in the USA, and Bob and I are doing some work together on the history of the Angus, which is going to come together in a project fairly soon. But Bob and I have done a bit of a study on this, and Smithfield Show goes back to 1798, so well over 200 years has gone by since the Royal Smithfield Show started as an offshoot of the Smithfield market. And hey, Bob, there were some interesting times in the early days there with some of these cattle. There were some fat beasts that came out of the market, weren't they, Bob?
Yeah, they were. Some of them cut at 9 inches of back fat. It's pretty amazing. And I have some great pictures of miner's soap. The candles and the soap and all the things they use for tallow, and they were pretty darn fat. It was, of course, once you had the agricultural revolution where you got all that good feed with small grains and turnips and everything, you could make the cattle that fat.
Yep. 9 inches of back fat. Imagine that. The show went on, moved from a few places round about London, and eventually, I'm going to fast forward a little bit, but to 1937 when it eventually settled in Earl's Court in where it was, and obviously a good stone's throw from the Smithfield Meat Market where it was, and then became the agricultural fat stock show that it was, and the pinnacle, I think, for just about everything within the fat stock world in the UK. But Bob, again, I'll say the Royal Smithfield Show. I know that the Chicago exhibition modeled itself on the Smithfield Show, but the Smithfield Show was and has been the greatest show on earth.
Well, I mean, there was an original show. The American Fat Stock Show in 1878 was a carbon copy of Smithfield. I mean, just down to the time a year it was, the only market classes that folded in, and then they had the international started in 1900, and that was still. The market classes were still the feature of it, but they also brought in the breeding classes. It was the same time of the year, the last show of the year, and it was, they drew a lot. But there was some of the Royal and the Highland show were brought in terms of the breeding aspects of it, and is where the breed showed off. So, and it was all about, we had scrub cows, and the stock show. The stockyards wanted to promote use of purebred bulls. They even put up a building to house all the breed associations free of charge. Mm-hmm. I mean, because they wanted to get your cattle over here and upgrade our scrub flocks and our sows and cow herds.
So as I said, the Chicago International came over. They modelled themselves on the Royal Smithfield Show. That's what a pinnacle that it was. And then the Smithfield Show went from strength to strength. And as I said, the Smithfield Show was an evolution of the Smithfield Meat Market, of course, and the Chicago exhibition was also an evolution of the Chicago stockyards, because the stockyards, of course, weren't just a sale ring in Chicago, but they also had meat processing factories all around them, and a fantastic story that goes with that one as well, Bob. So the Chicago came about, although modelled on Smithfield, it came about as an extension of the Chicago stockyards.
Talking about the American, how it was tied with the American stock show. I mean, the stockyards. I mean, they process millions of livestock a year. I think by 1954 they processed their billionth animal. So at 1900 they were handling 82% of the meat consumed in the United States. So it was in their interest to improve the nation's flocks and cow herds and everything else, because it was directly in their pocketbook on what the product they put out. And we also exported a lot of beef to the UK. And that was a big market for us, and you guys liked really good beef too. And so it was. I mean, the stockyards were totally bought into it as to help themselves. It was
what Bob is saying is they started their cattle show over there, and they got such good beef they were selling it back to us. And one or two of you guys in here might just have a word to say about that. No, anyway, moving back to the Royal Smithfield Show, running into its second century there in 1937, the show cemented itself into Earl's Court, a new building at the time, and Earl's Court was built. This fantastic brand new exhibition. By the time most of us on here remember it, it was starting to tire a little bit, but it did have that beautiful Art Deco front of the building that Earl's Court had, and something that everybody remembers. I'm gonna run through a roll call just of the. I've only got records going back to the 50s, and I'm not going to bore you all completely with them, but the records, obviously, I've got records going back for 200 years, but I'm not going to go back through those. But I'm going to read just a quick roll call, because to win the Royal Smithfield Show was the pinnacle. It was something everybody on here wanted to do, whether it was upstairs or downstairs. It was, upstairs sheep downstairs with cattle, it was the one we want to do. And we've got a few winners on here tonight, 2 or 3 of them I can see in front of me. Brilliant that you guys have done that. But I'm going to run through a roll call because I think it's actually prudent that we should honour all these people that have achieved this fantastic achievement. And I was going to do 60 years from 1954 to 2004 when the show closed, but I'm actually going to start a little bit earlier, run through these fairly quickly because in 1949 it was won by Scottish malt distillers, and they became a feature in that winning role. 1950 by Edward Webb, 1951 by J. Sainsbury's, of course, Sainsbury's supermarkets, Kennermany, a fantastic herd of Angus. 1952, Scottish malt distillers, 1953 by Scottish malt distillers, and 1954 by Scottish malt distillers. And that's not only that one outfit has won it 3 years in succession, but also 4 times in 6 years. And more to the point, the chap that brought those cattle out there, a chap called Bill McPherson, and I've been on to Annie McPherson today, see if it's one of her crowd because it's from that part of the world. Donald, I'm not sure it's one of your family, but the McPherson family, they brought out 4 Smithfield champions for them, but 3 of those also went on and won Birmingham, like was the England Fatstock Show, still is, and Edinburgh as well. So 3 of those animals, 4 times winning Smithfield in the 50s, but three times of those they'd won Birmingham and Edinburgh as well. What an achievement! I think those guys. I'm not going to do rounds of applause for everybody, but that's just fantastic achievement to go back to the early days that I've got on record there, and Bill McPherson being the man behind those. So fantastic. Okay, well, I will run through that because I think it's great. There's in 1955 Major Gordon Duff, and I remember Major Gordon Duff because from Aberdeenshire, and then he moved down to literally 200 yards down the road from where I live down in Worcestershire. He moved down there, and I knew this guy had some association with Smithfield, and I met him a couple of times at a sort of local church too, and I had no idea what a legend Major Gordon Duff was there. And if you look back in the records, he'd won it many times, but in 1955 that was him. 1956 A.H. Stobo, and we'll know Jim's died just recently this year. Jim's family, Stobo from Berwick-on-Tweed, fantastic stalwart for Smithfield Show, we'll all admit, and a steward in his later days, and Jim, good stockman in his day too. So his name was on the roster in 1956. 1957, Team Man. 1958, J. Sainsbury's again from Kennermany, and of course Sainsbury's Sainsbury's realised that there was a market for good quality beef, and if they went in and bought some herd of Angus, then they could put their name behind it. And Kennermany were a huge name in the Aberdeen Angus industry for 2 or 3 decades, and then 1959, I've got some of the judges in front of me. 1959, the show was judged by Alan Grant from the Thorn, and it was won by Witchcross Estates, and Witchcross Estates was run by the cattle brought out by George Rugg, brother of Bert Rugg, as we'll probably know more of, and the Witchcross Estates, great Aberdeen Angus breeders again. So their name was on the trophy, and a lot of other trophies as well, I think. 1960 cancelled because of the smog, and then my father used to talk about the smog that came on. The smog was this sort of massive smoke and fog that hung around London, and they had to cancel the show. And I think it was in 61, they nearly cancelled the show because the cattle were still all getting taking them down and all dying from this bloody horrible weather that came around them. So things that we didn't know about in those days. Now, the 1961 won by Alan Grant the Thorn, and the cattle brought out by Bert Rugg and judged by Jimmy Schofield. And I put that a picture of that beast on our Facebook page recently. A beautiful looking animal, Angus animal there. And 1962, Alan Grant again, this time judged by the great Herman Purdy. And Bob, a lot of us have spoken about Herman Purdy, the American, probably one of the greatest judges that have been throughout America, if not throughout the world. A fantastic judge that judged just about everywhere in the world. So, legends. These guys are legends back in that day. And then we move on to legends. In 1963, judged by Jim Everall from Shropshire, was David Sinclair. And again, we would say the great David Sinclair. And I know Hector's on here. Hector, you didn't bring out cattle in 1961, Hector, but unmute yourself wherever you are if you're still on, and tell us a bit about David Sinclair.
David Sinclair, it was 1971 I started going, and he was champion that year. with a steer called Al, and reserve champion the next year, 72. I think there was 6 years on the trot. He was either champion or reserve. It was either 5 or 6 years from the White Shorthorn steer, the Phoenix Freeze, through to 1972. He was either champion or reserve. But the amount of cattle he showed over the years was astronomical. I remember one year we had 28 in Earl's Court.
It's phenomenal. I remember him bringing that many cattle down. It was a float load on his own. Other cattle came down from Scotland. 5 or 6 exhibitors on a float, and some of them would come down. There'd be 1s and 2s, and then Davy Sinclair's float would arrive in 2 floats, 2 floats with his cattle on, and Hector with his head scratching and a bottle of whiskey in his hand. But I'll move on through these because you're right about what you said about Davy Sinclair. Was reserved more times than he was champion, he had 3 on each side, I think, or 3 and a 4. 1964 was a big year because it was the year of Jim Biggar, and it was the last Galloway to win Smithfield. And Smithfield had been won by a Galloway going back into the earlier the century, and then the Angus came on, and Angus, if you look at the records, the Angus scored and scored and scored again, and the Galloway didn't really get that look back in. And then Jim Biggar, of course, of Chapelton, fantastic Galloway breeders, so that was winning there with a white beast, and there's pictures of that going about the place. 1965 Osmonds, and I think that might have been by Albert Retty would have been there by then, I think, but judged by E. Jones, a Welshman, and Osmonds won that there with a pure Hereford. And again, I think the last time pure Hereford won Smithfield, so that was 1965. 66, Bob Adam, and a famous year, 66, nothing to do with the football. Bob Adam judged the cattle there, and Alan Grant won the double. And some of us will remember, a lot of us will remember, Ian Grant, of course, used to steward at the show there. Fantastic, and I put some pictures up this week. But Alan Grant from the Thorn was a great cattle breeder, a pal of Bob Adams, but worked together very much. But Bob judged that year, and Ian Grant did the double, champion and reserve, one of the few times that's been won. 1967, cancelled foot and mouth, of course. 1968, Jim Biggar's father judged that. Davy Sinclair winning there again, his second title. 69, Jim Stober judged it, and H.A. Colburn, and I'm right in thinking he would be an Englishman, Colburn. Anybody can comment on that?
It was a pure Hereford, Andy.
It was a pure Hereford, okay, so I was wrong, the pure Hereford won that. So that was one, yeah, okay.
Yeah, Davy Sinclair was reserved that year, I think.
Some man Sinclair hard to put away. And then 1970, another turning point, a milestone, I'd probably say, was won by Mrs. Colfax. Of course, the beast brought out by Bert Rugg again, judged by Bill Stanbury. And that was the first Charolais to win. Owen Smithfield had been a Scottish win, although Mrs. Colfax was technically English, I think, says me fighting for that corner. Alan Everall judged in 1971. Davy Sinclair won again. This is the third time Davy's had his name on there, as Hector said, 3 times champion, 3 times reserve in a very short space of time. The man to beat. 1972 starts the reign of another famous winner, but a famous partnership, I think, was Eric Ivory and John Lascelles. And Tom Laughlin judged that year. Ivory and Lascelles winning with Angus Cross Angus, 1972, and then the following year Jim Biggar judged it, and Ivory and Lascelles winning it again. So twice in a row, and then they became a pretty hard force to beat. 1974, Tom Brewis, great cattleman that Tom was, great Angus man that Tom was. Tom judged that, big man behind Smithfield all his days, and that was won by Jim Donald. And Jim, a legend to all of us, and I know Angus is on here somewhere. Angus, you want to have a quick word about that? It'll be before your day when your dad won the first one, but 1974, rather, he got his name on the team sheet there.
Yeah, I was at school at the time, and that was long before I got to go to Smithfield, but it was the late 70s before I was able to go to Smithfield. It was marvellous, obviously, but I was there for Big Daddy and Gago Lady and all that era. So
later on, so that was the first one that Jim got his name on that team sheet, and as said people look up to. Following year, Frank Young judged yet another a legend, or two legends, I suppose, is Lahore and Macmillan, and of course the legend Jimmy Macmillan. Again, a partnership, and it kind of was the thing. Changed, I suppose, that partnerships could buy these animals between them or breed these animals between them, or one would breed them, the other one would show it and or feed it or what have you. And that got Jimmy Macmillan there in the glass box. In '76, Bill Stanbury judged it again. Jim McKechnie, so another great name. A lot of them you'll remember. And Jim had his name on that trophy twice. The late Jim now, but I'm not sure Catherine's on here or not, but. Well, there's some great pictures, and a lot of folks will remember Jim from France Farm. So, 1977, Ian Grant judged it. Ivory and Lascelles again with a beast called Thingamajig, and I've put some pictures on that. Anybody remembers the beast Thingamajig? I did in 1977, my first year at the show. A fantastic beast, and then the year after, Robert Needham judged it, and Kenny Sutherland. So Kenny's on the call tonight. Kenny. What an achievement! Congratulations.
Yeah, it was a great achievement. It's a lifetime thing. It's a great honour. Great show.
And there's something about the Smithfield Show. It's not just the champion, but there's another even more or as much coveted trophy anyway called the King's Cup, and that's when it's been an animal's bred by exhibitor. And you were breeding a few cattle, got a Charolais bull in at the farm on your Angus and Shorthorn cows, and you bred that beast yourself. Yeah.
We bred it ourselves, and we bred a heifer. That day was the intermediate heifer, and she won it as well.
Yeah.
It was a great honour, actually. Great honour. We had good fun. Enjoyed it very much so.
Anybody says you're lucky, you're not. It's not about luck when you do that, especially when you breeded that thing. And the animal called Busby, and there's been some pictures of Busby going up there. And in 1978, Robert Needham judged. 1979, rather, Davy Sinclair judged, and Harry Emsley, and I know the young Harry's on the call here or not. Jackie certainly sent me some messages earlier on, and Harry won that with a beast I think he bought out of Orkney. And again, Kenny is a brother-in-law of yours. That would be right.
That's right. He was called Phil. That one. Yeah.
Great. 1980, the last purebred animal to win Smithfield would be judged by Muriel Johnson, and that would be Scott Watson with Panda of West Drums, and of course. Norman, you probably wouldn't remember Panda, would you? But Panda, of course, bred by Davy Smith and then brought out by George McCulloch. Well, I don't know whether George is on here or not, but George brought that beast, a great beast, I think.
Yeah, no, I remember it very, very well. Yep. A lovely animal, great animal, good representation of the breeds. I remember it very well.
Good.
It's amazing, actually. I can't remember what I did yesterday, but I can remember, but that's an age thing, I think covers with it.
Brilliant. And in 1981, to stop John Lascelles winning, they put him in a judge, which is how you do these things, and it's happened to a few. And Jim McKechnie won that one his second time as well. Jim Rowan judged in 1982. Jim Rowan, of course, a big beef man, I think, and I remember him judging, did a great job. And Strathisla Farms winning that, and that be brought out by
Strathisla Farms would be
Ian Roberts.
Ian Robertson, of course, Ian Robertson. That's right.
Ian Roberts.
Another Charolais cross, and a great beast that was.
And the name was High Voltage, no?
Ah, get you lot.
High Voltage?
Yeah, High Voltage sounds about right. Okay, pull that. I'll keep rattling through these, or we won't get there. Bob Rickerson judged the year after. John Lascelles won again, his fourth time. So John Lascelles would be one of the few that were in that 4 times winning championship. If I go back through the history for its 200 years, I think there's only 3 or 4. I mentioned one. So this is now John Lascelles winning on his own. So
John Lascelles, sorry, a big one.
And Angus Donald, you were reserved that year. You remember you got beaten that day.
Well, I remember.
84, Jim Bigger judged again, and Alex Herbage. Those that remember the story behind Alex Herbage, and I'm not sure Richie Thompson's on this call, but Richie, of course, brought that animal out, the Thunder Flash, and the rest of us can remember he was a large guy.
Larger than life, Mr. Herbage. Nearly as big as myself.
He was a large fella, and Richie made a great job of bringing that beast out. And as some of us will remember, they just got through and won the championship, and in came the police and lifted him and took him away in handcuffs and led him out down to the Old Bailey, and he went away for doing fraud. But there was nothing wrong with the beast itself. Fantastic animal, and so well brought out by Richie Thompson. 1985, Nobby Bristow judge Robert Aiken won that with a great limousine steer. I'd say the first limousine, probably the second limousine, because the one of I think Rich Thompson's was a limousine as well. It's the first time a limousine had crossed those tracks. Robert Aiken did the same thing, and then the following year, Jim Rowan judged it again. I might have the people wrong there, I think, but. Would he judge it twice? Maybe not. But that was the year that Joe Gilbert had won it. And Joe Gilbert, from down there in England, Joe Gilbert had been winning Birmingham for a few times and came to Smithfield the first time with a big modern carcass limousine beast. Probably not quite the flashy show beast that had been going on over the years before, and picked up the championship there. And it was a change. I think there was a little bit of a change in it. Anybody remember that beast?
Yes, it was a very good beast. It was just a good cattle beast.
Good cattle beast, you're right. And the following year, another Englishman, John Lakin, judged it. Another Englishman, we got Brian Peace winning it. So the second Englishman in succession. And Brian Peace there from Yorkshire. The Ebo Ricky, if I remember right. The one was called Ebo Ricky. Julian, am I right? Do you remember that? It was your part of the world.
Yeah, I remember it. It was a funny sort of chap, was Mr. Peace, but just turned up, didn't do a lot. Scottish stockman to do the work. Very much a carcass. Yeah, a bit like the beast the previous year. Different from the sort of showy quality beast Smithfield was associated with.
It was a milestone, wasn't it? It was a change.
It was a big butchery sort of beast.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Which obviously John Lakin, he was a butcher, damn good judge. That's what he liked.
Yeah. And that's fine. I mean, the judges is entitled to that opinion, of course. And Brian Peace said, Yorkshireman, to speak it through, but brought a big square carcass beast, not a lot of hair on it. Probably wasn't the most popular winner amongst some of the Scottish boys at the time. Following year, I'm getting a few nods ahead. Following year, David Matthews judged it, and David Matthews, a Welshman, no disrespect, but Arthur Jones won it with a wee baby of a calf. Really, I remember Arthur, and it was a fantastic beast again. But it was am I right? I think about 9 or 10 months old. There, just a little black, real sharp little thing.
Just a bundle, but that was all.
And the year after, John White of Medlock. A lot of you know John White for various things, but a great cattleman, great cattle judge there, and he picked up a beast that one or two people had seen in the north there called the Bandit. And Donald McPherson, I know you're on here somewhere. Donald, stick your hand up, unmute yourself, and tell us a bit about the Bandit, because we all thought you were a bandit coming down and winning that, but that was some beast.
All right, I was at the loo. Sorry. Question. Yeah, I was listening to Storm and Norman there going on about high voltage. What a beast that was, Norman.
It was indeed, Donald. Yeah.
I saw that at the Winter Fair. I thought, nothing's going to beat that. Yeah, but
equally, the Bandit, Donald, was a tremendous animal.
Oh, you're onto a Bandit, right? Aye, he was a decent beast, right enough. He was a bit like High Voltage, kind of modern.
Yes.
I think High Voltage would be the first one, the first modern type to be winning.
Yeah, absolutely. Probably you and I were the first, to see that type of animal in front of you with that scope and modern and stretch and that extra rib as well.
Aye.
And the Bandit fitted that as well. That was the same template.
Aye, he was all right. We quite liked him. He was a
Donald, there was a wee story behind him, though, wasn't there? I think I remember you telling me, didn't you? Your dad had seen a picture of him in the Scottish Farmer somewhere in a calf show up in the north, and your dad been loving his cattle. And of course we all loved you, and with you and the legend who jumped in his motor and headed up there to go and find it.
Yeah. In fact, he went up we saw the photo because they'd won the Lathern show. And then Dad went up to the Black Isle show and tried to buy it from James Mackay, but James was quite canny and he took his time, and it took a couple of weeks to get it. But he managed to buy it eventually, and then James became great friends with us thereafter. So it's not all about the animals. You got all the connections with the people as well.
When your father said you're having a drink, it'll be no, I won't have one. You'll have one anyway. It's a hard man to refuse, your old man.
It's 16 drops.
One of the other things there, just as a note of interest, and I'm sure most people will agree, the amount of animals that have come out of the north of Scotland, from Granton and above, that went on to do very, very well and be very successful at Smithfield, were phenomenal. I mean, that was the sourcing ground for a lot. If you didn't breed it yourself, you went up to the north to these markets to try and source, these calves to bring on.
And again, Donald, we'll go on to your prowess that you've done with when I go through the rest of the Roll of Honour, your name's on there a few times. But again, your father would agree, but he wouldn't go to the market and buy them. He'd just go and he'd source them, he'd find them, he'd seek them out, and he'd go there and pick them off. And
we spent the whole summer looking for them, Andy.
What an experience that was, though.
Oh man, there was several bottles of whiskey just to get things bought. Yeah, but we put a lot of effort into it. It was my father's passion, without a doubt. So, you went with it.
You went with it. Well, let's just go through and run through that. I mean, I'm going to have a bit of a Q&A in a bit and say which the best beast we saw at Smithfield on the Bandit, certainly up there in that, and a lot of people will agree with that. And that year, to be fair, I mentioned Arthur Jones earlier on. Arthur Jones was reserved, so Arthur the Welshman was still in there. The following year, John Thomas judged it. Brian Peace won it again. So Brian Peace, not just a flash in the pan from Yorkshire with his big carcass type beast, but second time a little bit of a sweeter animal, but brought two champions out in 3 years. 91, Jim McMillan, the great Jim McMillan judged it. Bob Douglas, we'll all remember that one, brought out by Fred Smith and bred by Archie McGregor, I think. Who remembers that beast, Hector?
Yes, I remember it well. It was Fred at his best. I don't know if you remember, when he showed it, if the judge was at its back, it had a jewel in its nose. Mm-hmm. And if it came to its head, the jewel was out of its nose. and that went on through the championship, and nobody seemed to pick it up. But he was a good beast too. That's when Archie was selling a lot of tremendous calves.
You're right.
There was a lot of great cattle come off Allenfold at that time.
I would, when I first went down to certainly go down to Smithfield and seeing animals bred by Duncan McGregor, there just seemed to be every third animal bred by him, and he was selling these animals in the Cali for a good trade, and going there, and then eventually Archie got himself stuck into it and thought he'd better give the job a go himself. So the following year, so that one was bred by Archie. The following year, Harry Emsley judged it, and the name on the sheet, Neil Pallister, but that was Starlight, of course, was owned by Jeff Bellis, and I'm not sure Archie's on here, but another great beast, and two champions in a row bred by Archie.
He said he might appear later on in the night. He had a meeting at 7 o'clock.
Yeah, well, he'd be one of the last men standing. Archie would be, and always was. Always is a backbone of a party down a Kist party, and it won't be up. We won't stop this party till Archie turns up, and I'm sure he'll rock up.
Archie will come on to the sing song.
For the sing song, right. Following year, Hal Mabry judged it. Hal had been a big buyer of cattle, been down there every year buying them, and animal from Di Thomas, and I had my hands involved in that one, dressing the beast up. I'd seen the animal first, to be fair, in Shropshire and West Midlands show, and said to Di, and Di should take it to Smithfield. Di had rarely been out of Wales before, and said, right, get that beast sorted out. Phoned me, told him what to feed it, told him how to dress it, how to groom it, what have you, and send it to Smithfield without a clipper being on it. And arrived in Smithfield, walked through the gates, nobody had seen it. nobody had recognised it. The hair still, things still covered in hair, and I spent 2 days dressing that one, and I was very lucky to get my foot into the glass box for that one with her judging that. But her name was Cindy. She was a cracking beast, and a day I was proud of. 2 years later, because the show went every 2 years after that, was Tom Adam judging, Harry Emsley, and Jackie's been on to me earlier on. Harry, again, my hands were involved in the Clippers in that with Harry Emsley, who won the coveted champion and reserve, and that's only a few times that's been won. A heifer called Miss Jackie, who was a super beast. I'd been up in Aberdeen and addressing those cattle 2 or 3 weeks earlier, and some fantastic cattle they were. And then they won reserve with a Hitman, which was bought from Robbie Wilson. Of course, a lot of people know Robbie Wilson from Texel sheep fame just now. And Stuart Hunter as well was involved in that. I see Stuart's name on there somewhere, and Stuart Hunter. There was a beast of Stuart's in there as well somewhere. You there, Stuart?
Stuart just passed a comment. I'm sure you can speak up.
He's passed a comment, not passed away. That's good. Then what's he passing? He's passing something. What are you passing, Stuart?
I was involved with that team with Harry that year. That was my second time in Smithfield. A great honour to be involved with that team of cattle, and the bullock that I showed that summer in my own name, Harry bought him privately from him. He went on to, it was neck and neck with him and the Hitman all summer, and Harry bought both of them, and he did very well at the end of the day. He had a good day that year.
You'd be just about growing a moustache by then, were you Stuart?
I started here.
The beast did have more hair than your moustache anyway. Yeah, good job. I remember having the crack down there. The year after, John Dawkins judged it, and Donald McPherson, and a beast that's talked about a lot by a lot of people, I think, was Lord of the Isles. Donald, tell us about Lord of the Isles and why.
Well, Lord of the Isles was reserved to you.
With Cindy.
With Cindy. It was Donald Bann that we won with.
Oh, beg your pardon. Lord of the Isles was reserved to Cindy. You're right. Sorry, of course.
But so it was Donald Bann we won with, and he was homebred. He was out at Simpson's Craic. The bull was shared with Archie.
Right.
Charlie bull. So he was a decent calf.
Uh-huh.
The only time we bred one that did any good.
That, and there's a picture I put again on the Facebook page today with you and your father waving the cup, and that's the King's Cup, and of course that is the one. It is the one to win, isn't it? It is the one to win.
Yeah, I take that picture you put on was actually the Winter Fair, and that was the Bandit.
Oh, okay. There you go.
You got it totally off the elbow, Andy.
There you go. Then. Thanks for putting me right there, Don. Like I should have you as my advisor. Honestly, I should.
Yeah.
If you're not, I can't afford to phone you in Singapore. That's the trouble to get the answers. That's the problem.
I know. It was Donald Bann.
Okay, Donald Bann. That's the one. Move on. The following year, Arthur Jones judging, and Hugh Dunlop and Hugh and Lynn Dunlop, should I say? Probably Hugh on his own back then. But Hugh, your first win there, Smithfield, Lynn was in Cross Charolais, fantastic beast. And Hugh, you're on here somewhere. Give us a shout about your first win at Smithfield and what that meant to you.
No, that was the first time. I was relatively new to Smithfield in these days. I think that was only my second time I went. Yeah. So it meant an awful lot to me. And my father-in-law at that time, Ian Anderson, was a great help. In these days, he had been a few times before that and knew how the job went. So that was a great help.
Can I ask Ian? Ian, do you know how to unmute yourself? Imagine you had to mute you. She'd love that if you know how to turn you off. Ian, put yourself on. Get yourself live. Press that button.
Hello.
Ian, welcome to the old man of this bunch there, but maybe not by much because. But Madge will call you the old man of this bunch anyway. But welcome Ian and Madge. We're just absolutely legends of Smithfield. So it was great to have you on there. And Hugh was just paying you a compliment there. Tell us about that first beast that he won Smithfield with.
A very good beast. His type at the time, but I wouldn't say he was particularly my type of beast. My type of beast would be maybe more like That's My Boy. I think that would be the second time that Hugh was there. That's My Boy. He won the King's Cup. Was it a King's Cup for the best?
Aye, no, that's my boy, Ian. That's my boy. Was a couple of years before. I'm your man.
Aye, well,
he won the King's Cup.
That was maybe my type of beast.
There we go. There's the picture on there. Anybody can see that? Brilliant.
Anyway, every Smithfield champion's a good one.
Well, Ian, you and I have had a conversation. Anybody hasn't listened to the early podcast that we did, which is why this podcast started, really, was us getting to Smithfield Week and reminiscing about the fact we weren't there anymore. So I phoned Ian, we managed to get Ian, Hector, and Dougie Macbeth on there, and we had a chat on there, and you talked about some of the early days you went down there. I think you went down there in the early 60s, Ian, and to be the longest runner of all of us, I think, at the Royal Smithfield Show.
Yeah, that was from Inverness-shire. That was shown in the old Waverley Market in Edinburgh. And at that time, the cattle moved from the fatstock show Edinburgh to Smithfield, and it was on trains and cattle wagons. And there'd be about 4 or 5 stockmen went into the so-called guards van type thing at the very back, and we never saw the cattle again until they landed at Earl's Court. But on the way down there, the only way we could keep ourselves in a half warm, big overcoats, and in the corner of the way guards van, there was a coal fire, and one of the other chap, whose turn it was, had to put more coal on to try to keep the thing going. That was an experience, but it seemed to be longer waiting in the shunting outside Earl's Court than it was the journey down. But then it was a great experience for a young laddie that was just no long married and didn't know what to do and all the rest of it. So learned a lot, just keeping my eyes open and watching what folk were doing. And the first year that year I went down, it was with a Highlander who had been champion at the Winter Fair, and he was reserve champion in London. Not a big thing in the likes of you top stockman's eyes, but for me, with a Highlander, it was a big thing at the time. And as long as you were learning and doing the best with your own breed, that was fine at the time. But as the years went on, you were getting in like Angus's and cross Angus's and 1 or 2 cross Charlies, things like that, give me great satisfaction. But what gave me more satisfaction, probably than ever, was even after I retired, helping Hugh and Lynn and being involved with them, and I got as big a kick out of that as I did with anything else, just helping, preparing, etc. And then the Smithfield itself, just an experience. Unless you'd been there, like most of us on this podcast, you would have no idea what Smithfield was like. But it's just great to hear the likes of all yourselves coming on and talking about these great old days. And unfortunately, a lot of the guys are not here now, but the young ones are still coming on, although they won't see Smithfield. But I still think the big shows at the moment that more or less are next to what Smithfield was are run very, very well. And I think the cattle, compared with the days when I went down, talking about commercial cattle, not just Highland cattle, but I think they're brought out far better nowadays than ever they were. I mean, I remember the Welsh cattle, for instance, coming to Smithfield, and just tied the ropes, no real halters or anything, and hairy as could be, horns, but they have fairly improved now. They can hold their own with anybody, these guys dressing cattle like that. So, but anyway, that's my summary of my time at Smithfield. And even yet, you know, it's a great thing for myself and Miles to go to see the winter. What's the fatstock show? Can't mind the fancy new name for it now.
That's good.
Anyway, you'll keep me right with that. I just got this snazzle.
Brilliant, Ian. Brilliant, Ian. And the only thing I can correct you on that is probably the biggest kick you got is you've had a bigger kick up the arse off Madge in the past. So and sometimes deserved it too. So brilliant.
Annie, I kick up the arse from Granny.
Yeah.
Superb. Great to hear from you. Even last, I'm lost when we got to there, but that was Hugh. You winning that one, and 1998.
Not bad for a lovely couple from Ballinlough. Very well done.
I move on because the roll call's taking us. It's supposed to be 5 minutes, taking us half the day. But 1998, Ewan McPherson got the job in judging that. His first year, I came in as stewarding, and Archie McGregor won that one. And if Archie's not on here, then maybe he'll come on later. But a great beast. I think everybody's winner that particular day. A good one. And then the show started to lose a little bit of pace. In 1999, we put a show in Betweenies, which I think was down in Tamworth, Julian, if I'm right there, judged by Michael Atkinson. And to be honest, I haven't even got a record of who won that one. It was the tough times, wasn't it, when we knew the show was falling back a wee bit.
Yeah, it wasn't easy then. A big change. Was it Lichfield?
Lichfield, thank you. It was, yeah.
It was certainly different. Put it that way.
We just tried in between times, and I probably missed out to Farm Tech. So I've gone back. When Farm Tech was Donald won Farm Tech, didn't you, Donald? When was that? Would that be 95? Was it when you won Farm Tech?
We had 1 year when we were just in Earl's Court 2, didn't we?
Was that Farm Tech? Donald will be there if he's not going back to join again. I think you remember that was the one that he won. You there, Donald?
I think that was the Donald Van year.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. That was the one which was the first year, and again the Royal Smithfield Club, should I say, we had no control. Julian and myself and Donald, of course, you were involved in that as well. No control over how the Smithfield Club controlled the show, because the show was run by the Royal Smithfield Show Society, which was mainly controlled by the agricultural machinery guys, and wanted to have pointed the finger at us over the years and saying, well, you guys let that go, and it was nothing to do with us. We ran the machinery side drove that, and then when they said it was going every 2 years, we went, okay, it's every 2 years, there's nothing we can do. But it was Jim Stobo, so I'm stepping back a little bit. Jim Stobo, I think, was the mastermind behind saying, let's have a show in the off year in Earl's Court, and we managed he managed to hire Earl's Court too. We did, and I think, if I remember right, we showed the cattle, the one that Donald won, and lost something nearly £1 million running that show that particular year. So that was never going to be a go a year on year. And I suppose in hindsight, the writing was on the wall that the show was starting to lose a little bit. So we did try in 1999 to put a show together in Lichfield, as you said, probably not the biggest success. And then 2000, again, a great show. Judged by Robert Needham, of course. Great Robert Needham was very much involved in the show himself, and that was won by Scott Watson and David Work with a beast that they had together, which is, I'd never seen so much hair on an animal. I think anybody that saw the animal when they bought it for quite a lot of money, I would think, Donald will back me up on this, a lot of money when this calf was bought, but I've never seen such a coat of hair on it, and it was a lot of hair on it. I think I'm right, I think about 10 or 12,000, maybe 14,000 pounds worth of hair on a beast there.
14 and a half.
And went on. And
14,500.
There you go.
At Fainston.
and went on and won Smithfield, and I think it was sold for 14,500 too, so that was a beast. And the reserve that year, I'm not sure if he's on again, that year was Tote. And Tote is, a lot of you know Tote, a young whippersnapper of a boy that he was then, but he went on there and had the reserve champion there. Tote, are you on this call? No, he's not there. That's a shame. Tote came, he came and stayed with me a few months ago down in France, and we had a good crack up at that. And he was involved in that. In 2002, John Dawkins judged it. Hugh Dunlop again with Dermot Small becoming reserve. I'm not sure if Dermot's on, if Gareth's on here, but Hugh, your second winner, and that's the one that Ian said was a better beast. Is that right?
No, that's not the one Ian was talking about. Ian would be talking about That's My Boy, who was away back in '93. Okay. That was, what's her name? Lipgloss.
Okay, cool.
She was a Charlie Cross heifer bred at John Roberts in a Logie Rate. Aye, she was maybe a wee bit different. I'm not fair to say that was maybe one of my lucky ones. But we take them all.
We take them all. Well, 2 years later, we had to wait 2 years for that 2004 Willie Glazebrook in the hot seat.
You take them all.
You take them all, of course. Willie Glazebrook in the hot seat there. Harry Emsley reserve that year, where the calf came from John Smith Jackson. Hugh Dunlop, of course, winning that year with Dancing Queen, and again, we'll have a bit of a vote in a minute to the best piece we've seen at Smithfield. To me, the first time I went to Smithfield in 1977, I thought the best piece I'd ever seen, and the last year in 2004, I'd say was the best piece I've ever seen was of course with Dancing Queen. Lynn, you're on here somewhere. Hugh, you're on there. What a beast! Anybody? What a beast!
The best Smithfield champion in my time.
Thanks very much. But aye, she was always one of a kind for us anyway, right for the night she was born. Her mum herself was at Smithfield in 98, I think it was. She was heavy heifer champion. But for the night she was born, she seemed to always be the one that gave us the worries that these good ones always do. I remember going outside, I knew she was travelling outside, and here she was hanging by the bum. In the coup, well, she was quite a spirited kind of coup, so the panic set in how we were going to get this coup coat to get this calf out. Thankfully, everything went to plan after that as it had today. She was only 13-month-old at Smithfield, and I think she was 606 kilos.
It's a hell of a size.
So she never missed many days after that, but she'd taken a bit of worry and a bit of... We never showed her at all. That was the only time ever shown. Grandad, Ian Anderson always said it was the best beast he'd seen, and we just kept her under wraps and kept our fingers crossed.
That's a hell of a thing to do. Sorry, Norman, you're saying that's a hell of a thing to do, to not show that a beast you got that good and just know. I mean, that's what Donald was saying earlier on. We lived in Breeze, Smithfield, and for you just to know that there's one place this animal's going, and going there, not take her to the winter fair, not take her out in the summer, not to sell her, just to be there and just know that was going to come right, and just it was fate almost.
Yeah, I would agree with every word that Hugh has said there. From an early age and right up, I always said that beast was perfection from the tip of her nose to the tip of her tail. And proved that, she was only shown the once, but she just went sailing through in my eyes. There'll be other people that think, there's better champions than that, but I think if a consensus of opinion of 100 stockmen, I think 75 to 80% would go for Dancing Queen. And I know Donald's there too, had a very good champion, but a different type. I would say there were two different types. Some folk like one type, some folk like the other, but Dancing Queen was my type. Although I said that That's My Boy that I showed the photograph was more my type than I'm your...
Quite a few kiss fathers,
But
these guys will show you.
Dancing Queen was different
From
again.
was more age.
From That's My Boy. But Dancing Queen, to me, is my ideal type. Yeah.
Well,
Andy, can I make...
Ian, thank you for that. Sorry, Ian, thank you for all that, really, because I said I'd have the first 5 minutes talk about the Roll of Honour, and we've actually done an hour on this already. It just shows how long these Kist parties get drawn out a wee bit, and I appreciate everybody being here and giving your time up there. So let's just talk about that last show just for a minute. And the last show there, again, Julian will back me up, and Donald for that matter. We'd had a heads up that the show for 2006 was organised, that the show was going to go ahead, and people had said on the 2004 show, by that time I was Deputy Chief Steward, I think, involved in that, and people said, I heard this is going to be the last Smithfield show. It's like, no, there's going to be another Smithfield show, 2006. It's already booked. We've got the evidence, and Donald Beggar, sadly, is no longer with us. Donald said, no, this is going ahead. So... we kind of thought that was going to go, but one or two of you, if not everybody, said, well, if this is the last Smithfield show, let's give it a kick at the ball. And we had a Kist party to end all Kist parties, I would say. And there's been a lot of Kist parties at the Royal Smithfield show, but that one, I have to say, was one hell of a party. And probably all you guys on here were there. Maybe not Dr. Bob there, but all you guys were there at that party. What a party it was.
You can only imagine. But I wasn't at that, because I was far too old. But then But I can only imagine what you guys went through. Not that night, but the next day.
There's a lot of stories around that party. I know Derek Skinner. I'm not sure if Derek's on here. Derek's saying he's getting up with the great Charlie. That's Charlie Allen. Charlie Allen. I'm sorry. Charlie Allen died this week.
Oh, really?
And Derek saying he'd been up on the Kist there and singing away with Charlie Allen at that. And I remember me get up there singing on there as well. There's a lot of things going on at that party. That what goes at those parties stays in those parties. I know, but
Andy, I didn't realise that you were such a good singer and dancer. What got you up on the table? The biggest job was trying to get up on the table.
The Kist.
Up in the Kist. That was the biggest job. But once we got you up, you were all right.
Yeah, you're right. You're right, Ian. I think we all went on that Kiss one at a time. And the one thing that I will say, and I didn't realise I was a good negotiator, and for all that Kiss party went on there, that they sent in the security guards to say you were not allowed to stay inside of Earl's Court after 6 o'clock when the show is closed down. And it's like, we're all stockmen, we can stay here. And they came in, and the security guard came in and said, right, you got to break this party up and send people away. And they sent in, to start with, their head security guard and 2 or 3 more, and they came, and Donald Bigger said, right, you get in there and sort this one out. So I had to go and chat to these guys, and they said, right, I'll give you half an hour, and we're going to send in the heavy mob and going to shift these guys out of there. So within, I think by about 7:30, they sent in probably 100 security guards who came in and surrounded the place and said, right, you guys, you're all leaving. And Donald said, you get in. So I had to go in and I had to go and negotiate with them. I think I bought you guys till about 8 o'clock there before eventually they came in. And it wasn't easy because there's 100 London security guards there, bloodthirsty guys sitting there waiting, started surrounding this place, going, "We're gonna get you guys out of there." And there's 300 Scotsmen inside, going, "Right, come and have a go if you think you're hard enough." So it was a bit of a blood. Probably one of my best negotiating jobs, but I think I got everybody out of there in one piece, and I'm very sad to say that was the last show that we had. So that's a tragedy, really. It's a tragedy. Anyway, that wasn't about. This wasn't about just talking about going through the winners there, because there's a lot of stories in here, and we've done our hour and more, and but there's a few people want to have see a few things. I think there we got 1 or 2 on here still there. I want to talk about the sheep, certainly. I know Dave McKerrow's on there. Dave McKerrow up there. You'll all know Dave, of course. So, David, unmute yourself. And Dave McKerrow upstairs, and the sheep would be one of your greatest days, and one of the biggest achievements would be the Continentals taking over the upstairs there, Dave. When was that?
I started going to Smithfield in 1981. I had been showing pens of 3 lambs at the Edinburgh Winter Fair. Started in 1976, and at that time, Ian Johnson, who was heavily involved in the Texel Sheep Society, wanted to try and get 2 or 3 people to promote the Texel sheep, and they encouraged us to go down to Smithfield. And at that time, the Suffolks had a stranglehold on Smithfield Show. The great Jack Bulmer, who was a legend showing Suffolks and South Country Cheviots, he was the man that we all had to beat to get our name on that trophy at Smithfield. So I started going in 1981. I won the short rules in 1982, and then won the Supreme Championship in 1983. It was a fantastic competition in Smithfield, and it was pens of 3 lambs you had for the butchers' classes. And to get 3 lambs matching was a big achievement in itself. You know, you could clip lambs into champions, but if you had a judge that could handle them, he knew fine that there was a lot of wool there, looking as if they were jigget. So you had to try and get lambs to start with that could handle well. And in the butcher's competition, on the Sunday, one of the lambs, in fact, it was this Sunday morning, one of the lambs out your pen of 3 went away and was killed, and then was brought back on the Monday. And this carcass lamb was hung above your pen. So you had another competition you were competing in, because you had your weight ranges and the carcass was in a competition, and you had an overall carcass competition as well, champion and reserve. And then you showed a pen of 2 in the butcher's classes. And then your butcher's champion would go up against your purebred championships, which was judged on the Monday, and the overall championship on the Tuesday. And it was a fantastic competition. I thoroughly enjoyed it. And I thoroughly enjoyed the cattle side as well. We used to go downstairs and get involved in the parties, and we had some great times. Thoroughly enjoyed it.
Some great times upstairs as well, of course. So when they're in the sheep bar, and some of us boys would go up to the sheep bar upstairs, and I'm not sure Marky Stewart's on it just now, but I know Marky would advocate that as well. That some of the crack that went upstairs there was just phenomenal. It crossed over a little bit, but generally the upstairs and the downstairs, and that bloody great escalator between us. But fair dues to you, Davey, to be the first Continental to win that, to take the spoils, I think, from Jack Bulmer, because Jack was obviously, or the Bulmer boys are the ones that rule the roost, and David Timms on there somewhere, and David, I think you were there with the Bulmer boys as well, so you're a Yorkshire man, you guys would have ruled the roost for a while.
Yeah, it was a magical time. We were 3 farms all in the same village. I was in the middle, Jack was on the top end of the village, and Richard at the bottom. So we did a lot of things together, and it was magic, great times, you know.
So you came in, but you would work for Jack or work with Jack, and you work together.
Jack was alive today. We showed together. We also I had Suffolks and I had Chivets. I used to show Chivets. We won with Chivets at Smithfield. About 83, 84. The wagons were set off from York down there. We used to be about 20 of us. We used to be the Scots from Northumberland as well, from Rosedon, and we'd have 2 or 3 tables in the hotel there, and the Filipinos controlled the bar, but it was a big room, but very dark, and we'd always have the tables in the corners of the room, and money was tight in them days, and we'd all go to the bar and get a whiskey and a bottle of lemonade, and they could never understand how we all rolled out at night. We all had a bottle in our coat pockets. Magic times, you know, unbelievable.
Yeah, typical Yorkshire. You take a bottle of whiskey each in your pocket then, and just make it last. Fair enough. I was talking.
That was great.
I was talking to you earlier on, and you said you used to go up the town there, and I know there's 1 or 2 we used to go up the town in Smithfield, and in my first time in 1977. Ian won't admit anything if he was there earlier on, but we used to go up to Soho in the back end of West London, and a fairly dungeon sort of a place that at the back there. By the time we got the 80s, it'd all been cleared up a little bit. So, as I said at the outset there, we're going to leave the party there for a minute, let everybody replenish their glasses. There will be an episode 2. There may even be 3 episodes of this one, but the last one, I'm sure, would be X-rated. So I hope you've enjoyed spending a bit of time in the company of some great and accomplished stockmen, stock people, and all those there that were in on the call, that were listening, maybe not contributing there. Thanks very much for your time there. So hope you enjoyed that episode. Episode 2 is coming next. As I said, may have gone a little bit off the rails with some of the comments that we had, but we'll try and keep it as PC and edited as possible. And I once again like to thank our sponsors, Harbro, for their fantastic support that they've given us over the years, and make sure that this year, next year, all the years that you look out the range of Harbro products and see what they can do for you and your livestock nutritional requirements. So thanks to Harbro, and if this next episode runs over Christmas, we'd just like to wish you all our listeners, Harbro as well, to everybody, a happy Christmas, very happy Christmas from myself and us here at Top Lines and Tails.